You're watching Conversations in Marin, a discussion with Martin Rosen and San Rafael Mayor Al Boro. Mayor Boro describes a defining moment at the beginning of Marin's open space district. What we did was really take this plan, Can the Last Place Last, where it identified certain areas to acquire for open space if there was a way to do it. And then we brought forward the whole idea of forming a district. We found out that there was, after we got into this, one model to model after in California, and that was pursued, and that was looked at by the attorneys and the county staff as to how to do it. So I think we were the impetus to have this whole thing go forward. And then it took, but it took the voters to make it happen. And so it was the voters, it was the campaign committee, it was the commission, kind of planting the seeds, if you will, at this first meeting that we had. But in retrospect, it's something I've been very, very proud of.
What impresses me as a native Californian is the wisdom that you identified the priority areas, which included ridges as well as wetlands and ocean front. How did that come about? How did you gain that wisdom?
Well, I think the wisdom came from the countywide plan at the time. The countywide plan called it out, and it talked about the Parks and Rec Commission, and that's really how this whole thing started. Once we received a draft copy of the countywide plan, we saw there were, if you will, things for the Parks Department to do. So we looked at that and we evaluated, and then we said, well, how do we start this thing? And we came up with this concept of going public with it and holding the hearings.
As a result of which we can enjoy today what you were in effect hoping for or leading toward just a couple of decades ago.
And I think last count there were at least over 12,000 acres of open space in central Marin right now along 101.
And being used by the people of Marin.
Right. Being used, being seen, being enjoyed, and being a protector and a community separator.
With school children as well as senior citizens alike, each finding a way that they can relate to our special places. And if I may say so, thanks to you and your colleagues, but especially thanks to you as chairman of the commission that led this effort.
I do have one fond memory when you talk about children. Elizabeth Terwilliger.
Yes.
She would come to our commission many, many times for many reasons, but she was a great backer of this concept, and she led people on tours. And I don't remember the specific role she played, but she was a great champion of this whole concept.
And again, with school children and with so specific an example of the wildlife and the amphibians and the experiences that we have here to share. She was a woman of passion, is that fair to say?
That's correct.
And persistence.
Oh, she sure did.
She reminded you.
She was quite a role model,
for many, many years. The Terwilliger example of what an individual person can do to connect us to our land. Did she appear frequently in front of the commission?
She did, and I can remember at one time she got concerned about bicyclists on the open space trails, and she had a plan. She came to our commission one day with a bell, a bicycle bell, and she said, you require all those bicyclists to have bells, and when they come across hikers, they ring their bell. I can remember Elizabeth standing there in front of our commission ringing a bicycle bell, so she was very persistent.
And it wasn't just an abstraction, she had very specific and she earned her credentials.
Oh, she sure did.
Again and again. I'm glad you remembered Ms. Terwilliger. Mayor Boris, you indicated that the commission had some motivation on the Parks Commission to do something specific with the countywide plan. What was that you actually attempted to do?
Well, the county planning department issued a report. Part of the overall plan was in the last place last. It talked about the environmental quality of Marin. And I brought with me this morning a copy of that particular document, which I still happen to have.
That's amazing.
And
that's a 1971
1971 document, right. And it came to our commission as something that we should look at and react to. And that's what we started to study. This is what talked about the idea of open space. It talked about countywide separators. It talked about preserving water around the baylands and the wetlands and so on. So we studied this, and that's what led us to the symposium. And I also brought with me this morning this poster that I
somehow still have.
And this again from
this
what
is
year?
I'm going to read part of this.
Okay.
This was the announcement on Saturday, May 15th, 1971 at College Marin. There was Alfred Heller, who was then president of California Tomorrow, was a keynote speaker, and the topics were recycling people's awareness, regional park districts, who needs recreation, specialized facilities, and then to set up roundtables to discuss priorities and what the next steps might be. So this was a poster that was brought around the county and used to advertise this particular event that day. And we had, I don't recall the numbers, I'd say we had 50 or 60 people there.
But from the outset, it wasn't a closed process, it was an invitation.
It was really exploring with the community what this concept of open space was all about. And this was really the start.
That's wonderful. And as you say, some of those people are still around. Alf Heller is now a resident of yours as mayor of San Rafael.
Right. And Alf is very involved now in the restoration and the further enhancement of Marin Center, the Marin Performing Arts Center. He's been a great supporter of that. And
with his wife, Ruth.
With his wife, Ruth.
That's
right.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So from the outset, open space involved open process for all of the citizens of Marin, and your hope, I assume, has been fulfilled that with some guidance and leadership, the people valued the qualities of life that you were offering.
As we mentioned earlier, they certainly reflected that when they went to the polls and how they supported it.
About 70%?
About 70% supported this measure. I think it was Measure A, as I recall at the time. And then, as I said, as an example, in the city of San Rafael, and I'm sure other cities had other issues as well, but in San Rafael there was a general tax, an open space district tax, which was supported. And then I also mentioned, I believe, a third in one particular area where they formed a special district. So at least from a San Rafael point of view, people were very concerned about open space in those days. Overall, you know, in those particular days, there were a lot of opportunities in this county, and there are a lot of opportunities today as well. But in this particular region of a growing national park, of acquiring open space, it was really a great day to be involved.
Well, the vital role was the federal government had a commission, your commission, to understand what was happening on this ground. So it wasn't strictly driven by somebody's perception in Washington.
Right.
You had that active responsibility and opportunity to affect the federal decision making.
And we did that for a couple of years, and then, as I say, they formed their own commission, their own board, which I guess they still have in existence today. I have not followed that, but we were the original sounding board.
But in the early days,
we were the sounding
that was
board.
vital,
Right.
that it wasn't just somebody sitting at a desk in Washington saying, oh, here's Marin County. You were there.
They were very interested in hearing from us, and we held hearings on West Marin in particular. I remember that.
The commission did.
The commission did, right. Marin County Parks Commission at that time went out to West Marin, held hearings with the federal government, talking about what could happen, what might happen.
Including some of the farming interests, the Giacomini's and the Grassi's.
I'm sure, yeah. I don't
and
recall
the
the specifics, right,
of the world.
But we met a lot of those people in those days, yes.
Because it's, what I loved hearing is that for open space, it's an open process instead of being something driven by elected officials or appointed officials knowing best. No. You've always seemed in your political experience and career to welcome public input.
Well, that's how you achieve things. You know, you can have an idea as an elected official,
right.
But you need the people to make it happen. And, you know, over the years in our town, we've used a process called the vision process in our downtown, for example. And that was citizens working on the future of the downtown. And it wasn't driven by government. It wasn't funded by government. It was, the process was, but the outcome came about through the citizens and through the businesses in the community. So
is it fair to say that ordinary people in Marin County actually do have an opportunity to affect the outcome?
Oh, I think they do. I believe very strongly they do in our city, and I'm sure they do in other cities as well.
And especially in open space matters, would you say you're open and listening?
Open space matters have not been as active as far as acquisition for two reasons. One, I think we've acquired quite a bit of the open space. There's always more to do, but I think we've acquired a lot of the priority pieces. Secondly, the cost of land is now so much higher.
Right.
It's much more difficult to achieve. We don't have the special 10-cent tax assessment that we had in the early days. That went away with Prop 13. So the funding source is not there. So to acquire land today, you have to be creative. You have to do it through development process, cluster your development, have dedicated open space, A lot of communities do that. In the case of the trails along the bayfront, we do require dedication. But there are ways you can do that.
And the key word was trying to be creative,
right,
and not just business as usual, or right, throwing up your hands and saying, sorry, can't be done.
Right. That's right.
And looking ahead, Mayor, what are your hopes for maintaining the quality of life that you've had such a significant role in bringing to this point?
Well, I think the people who are here today are going to be here tomorrow, and I think they're going to want to maintain what we have and enhance it and sustain it. And I think they will rise to the occasion when opportunities present themselves. This is a very special place, and I think people understand that, and that's why a lot of people moved here, and especially if they came from other places in our state, and what they see here versus what they see elsewhere, I think they want to maintain it.
You've been watching Conversations in Marin, a discussion with San Rafael Mayor Al Boro. Your host has been Martin Rosen. For more information about Marin County G-Channel programming, please email us at maringchannel@gmail.com. And you can visit us on the web at maringchannel.org. Thanks for watching.